Welcome back. Today we're going to look at collision detection. Collision detection is the process whereby we detect that two objects or graphical elements have overlapped or collided with one another. Collision detection is an important part of most games and many other types of applications. So let's get started with our example. So for this example, we're going to first add a number of graphical objects to our stage. The two obvious ones you can see here, we've got two stars. We've got a black star and a right star. So I've converted those to symbols, but let's just draw them first. So in order to draw the black star, on your toolbar, just below the oval tool, is the Polystar tool. Now just select the Polystar tool. You won't be able to see it on my screen due to the way I'm recording, but just follow me. Just below the oval tool is the Polystar tool. Now when you click on the Polystar tool and the properties panel is open, there are two options on the properties panel: fill and stroke and tool settings. Just expand the tool settings and then a button called options will appear. Just click that button, a dialog box comes up and it allows you to select the style. By default, polygon is selected. Change that to star. Okay, and just leave the other defaults, the number of slides to 5 and the star point size to 0.5. Okay, and now when you draw a star, it will be a star rather than a polystar. Okay, so draw two stars for me. And the second star, you want to just change the fill and the stroke. So, well, actually just the fill. So we can change that. You can change the fill color using your toolbar as well. You can also change the fill as well. Okay, so you have these two star shapes now. One is black, the other is red. Now you need to create symbols out of them. So we have done that in a previous video. So you need to right click and then go to convert to symbol. And then for the symbol name, for your black star, just enter the name black star. Okay, and just click OK then. And similarly with your red star, just right click, go to convert to symbol and enter red star. So importantly, we have a lowercase r and then a capital S, so we're using camel case. That's the same as with the black star. Okay, so you should have two symbols now. You've got a red star and a black star. Now we want to add some text to the stage. So use the text tool, which is on your toolbar, and it should be, it's a giant T, so you should be able to find that one easier. And you just want to write some text on your screen, exactly like what I've got here. So you can take that text and just copy exactly as that. So you've created a text box, and you can make this one a static text. So there are three options for text: input text, dynamic text, and static text. Because this is just a label, we can make it static text. Okay, so just one static text there, and just put in that text I've got there, and another text box to make it static text, and just type that text in there. And also do it for the third one down here, so I can make that one a bit smaller. Okay, and after you've created these three text labels, you want to create three more text boxes, but these ones, rather than being static, you want to leave as dynamic. First one here I've called false text. Okay, I'm giving it a specific name because that's the name I'm going to use in ActionScript. So if you just give it the same name, your ActionScript will work with it with little issue. Okay, so you've got false text is a dynamic text box. Then you've got true text, another dynamic text box. And then down here we've got another one, dynamic text, object text. So all of these are using camel case. So a little O and a capital T when you're saying object text. Similarly, true text and false text. Okay, so do that first. And now we're going to look at the code. We've got importing our movie clip. That's pretty standard now with our document classes. And we're importing the events package. We're actually importing this syntax here, where it's got the star. That means all. So that star or asterisk means all. So this statement is saying import all the classes from the events package. Now that's a bit of a lazy way of importing multiple classes. Generally you shouldn't do that, but in this case we will, just to make life a bit easier. I've got a multi-line comment here which gives details about the symbols used in the program. I've put the symbol names here so it's easy for me to refer to those symbols in my ActionScript code. So rather than going back to my Flash file and clicking on the objects and viewing the properties panel to find out the name, the instance name of objects, I've put all the symbol names in here so that I can quickly refer to them. As we created before, we've got black star, red star, we've got true text, which contains this text, false text contains that text, and object text contains that text. Okay, and we have our class here, collision detection, and extends movie clip by default. Now, our very first thing is our constructor. So remember, our constructor function has the same name as our class name. And the only thing we've got in here is adding an event listener. We're going to listen to the event.enterFrame event. Hopefully you remember that this enterFrame runs or goes off every frame. So by default, 24 FPS or frames per second. This function here will occur 24 times per second. Okay, let's have a look at it. Check for collision. And the parameter, it must take an event, an event type as the parameter. And it's a void function as well. There's two functions for collision detection in ActionScript. There's hit test point and there's hit test object. And we'll see the differences between those now. So the first function uses hit test point. Black star here is calling the function hit test point. And what we're passing, the information we're passing to hit test point are the X and Y position of our mouse. We're passing a third argument called false. Now what the false means, it stands for shape flag. Okay, and we'll see what the shape flag does in a second. So if our black star is hitting the mouse position, so basically when we hover that over our black star, the false text will change to hitting. Okay? Otherwise, if our mouse is not touching the black star, this will run. Okay, we haven't seen this bit here, else. This else statement. This is new. So we have seen the if statement where you said simply if such and such, then you would run whatever. So you would run whatever code is within the braces here. This else is an additional thing, and it basically says If this here isn't true, then we're going to do this. An if statement only gives you one option. So if something is true, then we're going to run a piece of code. The if else statement gives you two options. So when it is true and when it's not true. Okay, so let's have a look at the next bit of code here. And that is very similar code, hit test point, but this time we set the shape flag to true. It's exactly the same otherwise. So we've set it to false here and true here because we want to see what difference this shape flag makes. When you create a symbol in Flash, like we did before, it creates a round rectangle. So let's go back to our stage and I will just click on this red star. You can see this rectangle around the outside highlighted in blue. What we call this rectangle is the bounding box. So it's called the bounding box. Every symbol has a bounding box. If you click on this one, you can see the bounding box for the black star. So when we're looking at the shape flag, when it's set to false, when shape flag is set to false, then we're saying we're going to detect collisions based on the bounding box. So shape flag equals false means we're going to use the bounding box to detect our collisions. When it's true, we ignore the bounding blocks and we only look for when our mouse cursor is actually on the star. So not on the bounding box, so not inside the bounding box or just past the bounding box. When shape flag is set to true, it's when we're only touching the shape itself. Okay, let's run this. Save that and run it, and we'll see the result. So the first thing that will change is this line here. Hit test point with shape flag equals false. So this one, remember, when shape flag equals false means we're going to use the bounding box to detect collisions. So let's just slowly move my mouse cursor over. So I'm not touching the shape, but I'm now within the bounding box of the star and it's changed to hitting. Now if I keep on moving further until my mouse cursor is actually on the shape, it changes to hitting then. Okay, so I take my mouse cursor off the shape and it's not hitting. If I take my mouse cursor out of the bounding box, not hitting. Okay, so experiment with that, and by just playing around with this code, you'll learn what we mean by collision detection with shape flag equals to true and shape flag equals to false using hit test point. Okay, let's go back to the code now. The next thing we want to look at is hit test object. So we've just done hit test point with the shape flag false and true. Now we're looking at hit test object. So I'm going to uncomment this code here to test our hit test object. So now when this code runs, save that, we're going to set the red star X and Y position to wherever our mouse cursor is. Now remember that this function we're in runs every frame, so it's going to be constantly updating the position of the red star X and Y position based on the coordinates of the mouse, the X and Y condition. So we're moving the red star around with our mouse. Here we say if red star hit test object black star. So basically if our red star is hitting our black star, then we're going to change this text, object text, to hitting. Otherwise or else we're going to change it to not hitting. Okay, now with the hit test object always uses the bounding box. So There's no concept of shapes. We ignore the shapes. It's always using the bounding box. So let's run this and see. Okay, so the red star is following my mouse cursor, and down the bottom I've got my text which currently says not hitting, because I'm not hitting the red star. Now as soon as the red star's bounding box touches the black star's bounding box, then this text will change to hitting. So I'll just slowly move it up. Hitting. Okay, you can see that the star shapes aren't actually hitting. It's only their bounding box which are hitting. So I can move it all the way up. Still hitting, still hitting, still hitting. It's only when I move it outside, when I move the red star's bounding box outside of the black star's bounding box, that it goes back to not hitting. Okay, so experiment with hit test object as well.